Should I invest in apartment complexes? Hi, my name is Julia M. Spencer. I'm a real estate advisor, investor, and enthusiast, and with this video, I want to answer that question. Now behind me you see some apartment complexes there, a lot of units in this particular setup. There's a lot of different kinds of buildings and several units in each one of those buildings. And recently I had an investor ask me if this is a good investment. My name is Julia M. Spencer. Go to my website today, juliamspencer.com. I'm a best-selling author of several audiobooks. Some of them are specifically geared for beginning real estate investors or for people that want to flip homes, foreign investors that want to invest in real estate in the United States, as well as there is my brand new audiobook on tax sale foreclosures, how to make tons of money with tax sale foreclosures. One of my audiobooks that specifically deals with this question right here is my Essential Landlord Guide. You need to go there today, download it today if you're a landlord. It's very cheap. You can listen to it on any of your devices, and you can have all the information that I've accumulated over 25 years at your fingertips today. Now let's get back to the question, should you invest in real estate that is an apartment complex like here? I had an investor ask me recently, should he invest in an apartment building? Would that be a good idea? And here's my answer to that. First off, I don't own any apartment complexes myself. So the best person to ask would be somebody that actually does, and they can give you very specific advice of the pros and cons. That being said, I have owned apartment complexes and condos, which are basically multi-unit buildings, and I can tell you from experience, from many years of experience, there are a hassle versus single-family homes just because there's a lot of extra management involved with those kinds of buildings. People that live on close quarters, even though they have their own units, tend to have issues and not get along as well, usually. Sometimes you're lucky, but in general, you can probably mostly assume that they're going to have problems eventually, and you're going to have to be a more active and more involved manager, or have a more active and more involved manager that manages these units for you. On top of that, people that rent apartment complexes and condos are usually the kinds of people that aren't able to basically purchase a home of their own, a single family home, because that's kind of like the next step up. So they have to rent in an apartment complex or in a multi-unit building, and the quality of the tenant is therefore usually a little bit less of a quality than somebody who can afford and rent a single family home. So again, that translates into additional management problems and management costs, just because management will be more involved and will take more time, and you have to pay your managers more in order to keep those units full, to keep them occupied, and to keep the tenants happy. In addition to that, usually with apartment complexes as well as condos, a lot of people use those kinds of buildings as a sort of transitional place of living. Maybe they're moving to a different area, or maybe they are in the process of buying a home, but it is not usually not in the United States. Now, I have to say this differently for different countries, but in the United States, usually people tend to move a lot more often, and a final place of residence that somebody chooses is usually a single family home. That's where most people want to end up at. Apartment complexes and multi-unit buildings and condos are usually more for the people that are looking to move up still in the future. So the tenants that you get with apartment complexes and condos do not tend to stay very long, certainly not maybe a few years, but definitely not longer than that. Now, the other downfall with investing in apartment buildings or multi-unit buildings, especially if you're going to manage the tenants in those buildings yourself, is the fact that because you're in close quarters, you have a high tendency of one unit interfering with another. And let me tell you what that means. I've only owned a condo, which was in an 8-unit building. So there was 8 condo buildings, 8 condo units in that one building. And in my entire career of 25 years, there's been a fire and a flood that affected my unit, even though the unit that actually did burn or had the flood was a different one, was not mine. And of course, you have insurance to cover these things, and usually it doesn't financially take a big cut out of you because the other person's insurance usually pays for these things, but it's still a hassle because you're displacing your tenants, you're having to hire cleanup crews, and potentially you could lose your unit because of somebody else's wrongdoing. So you're basically exposed to a lot of things that can go wrong that normally would not happen with a single family home if it's freestanding, and you wouldn't have that interference with anybody else if you had a freestanding single family home. So what I recommend is, I don't want to discourage you from buying apartment complexes or multi-unit buildings as a real estate investment, but I do want to caution you that it is more of an advanced type investment technique. I wouldn't recommend it for beginner real estate investors. If you're a beginner, aim for the single family homes or single unit homes. And then later on, if you become more confident in your abilities to hold that real estate in your portfolio successfully, then you can move on to multifamily units. And for more tips like this, go to my website, juliamspencer.com. Download your free guide to real estate investing there. Send me your questions, and happy investing. Thank you so much for listening.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.